Right. Okay, I guess, that's right, you have some.
On air quality, has there been any progress on, I know there was a meeting, wasn't there a meeting with?
Yes, there was a meeting with Rue. They had asked, there was Frank was there and Ellen was there. There were a few technical issues that Frank had asked our Rue team to resolve, to look at, having to do with the equipment and the metering and the zeroing of the equipment, which was a very technical issue. I know they've looked into it. I can't answer that question, but I'll get the answer for you to that question. But my sense is that there's a general sense that what was being done was generally considered decent. I mean, I should let you speak. You were at the meeting.
Yeah, we had asked Cornell to look at the air quality of the trucks that were coming in, and what Dr. Eisl told us was that you couldn't really distinguish between the air quality coming off the bridge, the fumes coming off the bridge and the particulate matter coming from the bridge, and the particulate matter that might be coming from the diesel trucks. So you couldn't pin anything specific on those trucks. The air quality in our neighborhood is just pretty bad anyway, because we have the bridge overhead. And any kind of additional testing that Cornell would do wouldn't really give us enough information, so we're giving you a pass on it. We're not expecting any more air quality monitoring. It's just, we've got bad enough air quality, and it's being looked at by the city as a whole in snapshots throughout the year, and they can pretty much pinpoint where in the city the bad parts are and take action as a city to mitigate it. But any attempt to really pinpoint specifics is pretty hard to do at this point, because we live in a soupy mess of pollution.
But there are ongoing measurements.
But there are ongoing measurements in the city that can, that will give us good information as a whole in the city.
I think broadly that's right. That the you can't pinpoint the sources, but I thought the presentation was actually pretty optimistic, and I actually think that if there are people on the island, who are interested in having a presentation from him, I thought it was quite fascinating, because he's got this incredibly detailed, data-driven testing grid throughout the entire city. And in fact, we thought one of the things we talked about is, well, why isn't there a grid point on Roosevelt Island, which was left out of the city's air quality monitoring program in 2010 and onward. And his perspective on it was that there's enough testing in all these other places that he can determine. But the level of air quality in the city broadly has gotten tremendously better over the last number of years. It's really astonishing.
In 2009 to 13.
Yeah, with taking out of the number 6 fuel. Anyway, it's a long story, but I think the big picture is that this, if to the extent that people are interested in air quality across the city, it is sort of a regional issue, and these guys are the experts on it. I thought it was a pretty compelling presentation.
Yes, it has gotten better because we're making an attempt to reduce the heating fuel, change the heating fuel that the buildings are using, but we still live underneath the bridge, and the bridge is a major source of ongoing pollution for the island. So that's so if we have So we're not any worse off than the rest of the city, but we do have a bad area, to have to work. Our concern is founded that there is a bridge overhead, and we do have pollution from the bridge, but there's nothing we can do about it. So and any additional pollution from the trucks coming in, we couldn't pinpoint or identify. So, but maybe Dr. Eisl would be willing to come and give maybe if you invite him,
We're happy to. I think it's a great story, and I think long term it's clearly a public health issue, which is something Cornell is very
That's
interested in,
right.
and it's a data issue, which is something we're interested in.
Yeah.
I thought it was very hopeful. I have to say, I thought there was a lot of good stuff. I mean, obviously there's more to do, but I thought that the public policy choices that the government has made over the last number of years has really had a fairly dramatic impact.
Ellen, was anything said about the impact of the Trans-Canada Power Plant as a component of our air quality? I mean, it's right across the river from us, and they have big
which one?
smokestacks.
The electric plant.
Not in the specific. Again, his, you know what, why don't you hold that question? When we ask Dr. Eisl to come and talk to the community,
I mean,
you can ask that
they've
question.
changed what they burn, which has made a significant difference, but quantitatively, what is that difference?
Yeah, it was quite interesting in that he has some sort of a scientific, way of taking a snapshot at various points in the city and using an algorithm to determine where the pollution levels are higher or lower around the city. So, I don't recall that we fared any worse than lots of other places.
Is there a nice clean spot he identified? We could all go and breathe and then come back.
And is it anywhere near West?
And Kelly, you had a question about.
Do you know whether he discussed anything about the dump?
The MTS, on the Upper East Side, and I think he did say.
The marine transfer
transfer station.
Yeah, well, you asked that
Property.
question again, that's the same issue, that you can't really pinpoint the dump as being at fault for a spike in pollution.
There should be a before and after though, because they'll have the baseline
Yeah.
based on all the other.
Yes, I think he was saying that there was not a problem with the Roosevelt Island and the Upper East Side of 92nd, where the marine transfer station is, that they did not impact.
What he did say, he did recommend though that, that the community hire an expert, but this is not a discussion for here. This is not a discussion for our meeting, but just in a nutshell, that the community hire an expert, not him, because he had, he's part of the city. He has a contract with the city to do this, it's air quality monitoring, but a different expert to review all the stats of the marine transfer station and use that as a negotiating factor for limiting, the pollution outputs of the trucks and perhaps in the barges, et cetera. Negotiating what kind of fuel the barges might use. Giving suggestions on what might mitigate the impact of the marine transfer station, rather than trying to stop it, mitigate the impact of it.
Okay, anything else?
Yes.